Welcome to our panel discussion on regional financing options for the shipping industry. Mr. Nicolas Bornozis will be on the 24th of July 2020 in Tokyo on the Olympic Games as official timekeeper of the Greek Olympic Committee. That's why he's chasing up. Let's hurry up. We have a plane to catch at 7. With your permission, by way of introduction, instead of telling you about our distinguished panelists, whom the CVs will see in your conference notes, I would like to refer you to that schooner that you see on the screen. This is, by way of a short introduction, I will tell you that it was plying the Eastern Mediterranean, the second quarter and the last quarter of the Eastern Mediterranean. And my endeavor to find which of the banks sitting on my left and participating in this panel financed that schooner at that time, I discovered a very interesting first document of a Cyprus-owned ship, a schooner, a rig, in 1878. Slide, please. The owner and master of the rig Aphrodite was a Mr. Georgios Lampi of Limassol. And you will see on this letter, dated 1/13 August 1878. 1878 was the year that Cyprus became a protectorate of the British, of the UK, after the agreement in the Congress of Berlin between UK and the Sultan of Turkey. So he was petitioning for his schooner to fly the red ensign and lower the Ottoman flag. He explained in his letter that he had the right because he had become a subject of Her Majesty the Queen, Victoria at the time. Reply. Regrettably, his petition was turned down because the legal basis on which a ship, schooner, steamer, whatever, had the right to fly at that time the red ensign and the Cyprus flag in 1960, when we acquired independence, was that ordering council, which you see on the screen, entered at the Court of Windsor and is called the Cyprus Maritime Ordering Council. 1900. That was the very first basis from which the Cyprus ships could fly the red ensign. And the interesting thing to conclude is you will see on paragraph 2 that the first official port of registry on the island of Cyprus was not Famagusta, was not Limassol, but was Larnaca, to the great pleasure of Captain Eberhard Koch, somewhere in the audience, whose predecessor company, Österreich Lloyd, used to carry the correspondence of all our predecessors, of the Cypriot delegates, the forefathers of the Cypriot delegates to Cyprus. Coming to a subject. Ladies and gentlemen, our topic is regional financing options for the shipping industry. I will pose the questions to two of the panelists. And I will start with, in the order that you have on your program, with Nicolas Pavlidis. Nicolas, since the crisis of 2008, we have witnessed the departing of global big-name banks from maritime finance, like the legendary Royal Bank of Scotland, where you learned your ropes. Now smaller banks are targeting the gap left by the departed big players. Which are the challenges you consider smaller local banks in Cyprus face trying to enter shipping? And are there any potential risks involved?
Thank you, and thank you to Nicolas for inviting me to be part of this panel. I have been here in Cyprus for 1.5 years, and we started together with my team a new ship finance team, and got a different perspective of ship financing from a smaller ship financing bank that actually was starting the department at the time. Different challenges to the more mature ship financiers I was working in the past. The smaller size, obviously, and the resources is an issue, but smaller doesn't necessarily mean worse. Often it means more flexible, it means speedier, faster, and I think with the appropriate know-how, it can achieve what it needs to do. There's competition from other big banks, particularly on pricing and other terms. In my view, as a reply to that challenge, I think the smaller banks can do it equally as well by being more selective and choosing the clients and the structures that they want to participate in. Obviously, ship finance and shipping involves high risks, and this stands for all financiers and obviously everyone involved in shipping. But for smaller ship financiers, it's even more important to be careful because mistakes count more. So I think one needs to evaluate risk, to bring in expertise, particularly with a smaller new entrant in the market, and try to learn from the history. I think this is really important and is part of what I try to bring to this bank. There's increased costs and regulations that will affect everyone, as we heard from the previous panels as well. And one needs to analyze this properly, understand the cost of capital to the bank and what its profitability is, so that is able to reflect accordingly and do its appropriate structures. Obviously, there's new developments that one needs to be stay in touch with and up to speed with. As a smaller team, this is a little bit bigger challenge, but I think at the same time, a smaller team can be involved with the local community, with the market outside. We focus on the Cypriot and the Greek, the Hellenic, as we call it, space, and it's very achievable to stay fully abreast of matters developing in the shipping sector, be it financial, regulatory, or technological for shipping. So there is problem with there is challenges rather than problems with size, competitiveness, expertise, but I think all these can be bridged, and with good quality and relationship banking, I think the smaller banks can excel and can achieve what they're set to do.
Thank you, Nicholas. I will pass on to my brother Adam Montanios, who is the moderator of two of the speakers today.
Okay, the next question goes to Constantinos Milios. Dinos, a few years ago, in 2015, a study by Ernst & Young, commissioned by the then Minister Marios Demetriades, whom we have the pleasure to have with us in the panel, on the subject of future of shipping in Cyprus, compared the strengths and weaknesses of the Cyprus maritime cluster with that of London, Paris, Singapore, and Oslo, and pinpointed the total lack of shipping finance in this island through local banks. Now, 4 years after, things are different. At what stage of development do you see the local bank market in this traditional shipping finance?
Thank you, Adam, and good afternoon to all. Apart from a few deals made by local banks in previous years under less specialized setups, effectively the local banks' expansion in ship lending have taken effect in the last 2 years. So it's a very recent stage of our development. Now we have 4 banks active in the local, traditional ship lending market in Cyprus. three of us are present in this panel, and the fourth one has recently entered the game. Therefore, obviously for us it's still the beginning. There's a long way to go, but the picture is clearly different to the one that we described previously. And it's very important to stress that the presence of committed local financial institutions is a necessary factor for the local shipping industry to further develop and mature.
Thank you, Dinos. Markus, your turn. 3 years ago, you came from the ancient and proud Hanseatic city of Hamburg with such a long shipping history and tradition, where in your previous career you witnessed the turmoil of global German banks with substantial ship financing portfolios, referred to by our chairman as the bad guys of KG systems, disappearing from the map. Luckily, and I should underline the fact, your previous career bank, HSH Nordbank, has survived and is doing well. In 2016, you have settled in the calmer waters of the Mediterranean and have set up the ship financing unit of Hellenic Bank. Please tell us, based on the experience that you have acquired since, how local Cypriot banks approach the shipping markets, local and regional, and how they see themselves in the global competition vis-à-vis other sources of finance.
I think to start with, ship finance is a global market, and we have seen over the past 30 years probably that ship finance has moved east. In the 1990s it was the American banks to be dominant, then the European banks became dominant, now the Chinese leasing providers, and we are trying to find our space there as all commercial banks are doing it. When it comes to the separate way of doing it, I think we have a massive ship finance market regionally here, and Nicholas already mentioned it. Cyprus and Greece are pretty much one market. So Greece is just 1 hour, a bit more than 1 hour flight away from Cyprus, so we consider that to be the Hellenic market. It's a 60 billion market, and there are plenty of opportunities for all of us. At the same time, and it was mentioned in the previous bank panel, it has become tremendously difficult for small and medium-sized owners to find financing. It has become more and more difficult to find financing for single asset projects that fall below thresholds the international banks have, and this is pretty much where we believe we have a good space. And as also Nicholas mentioned before, whilst we might not be the most competitive when it comes to pricing, and maybe also not the most competitive when it comes to advance ratios, even though there I would say I don't want to compete on advance ratios. If others have a higher risk appetite, it's their risk but not mine. But we can make a difference when it comes to speed, and there, for instance, I remember a situation last year where a Greek owner said from the very beginning that speed is of essence. The bank that comes first gets the deal, and he's not very sensitive on the loan amount. Even though two other international banks offered a significantly higher amount, we get the deal in the end just because we were first.
Next question goes to Marios Demetriades. Marios, you must feel an odd man out sitting here in the middle of three ship financing bankers. You represent the alternative finance sector, for which we heard a lot from previous afternoon speakers. Can you please focus specifically on the Cypriot aspects of shipping funds? And can you tell us, how does Cyprus promote shipping funds? And what incentives have been given by the Cyprus government to such shipping funds?
Let me start by thanking Nicholas for inviting me to this panel. Actually, I worked for a couple of banks for 15 years, so I don't feel very old. But just to say a few things about the alternative finance or alternative finance space in general, I think more and more ship owners are seeking other ways to raise capital because shipping needs to be financed, and obviously during the last few years there's less capital available from banks, and this of course does not apply to the three gentlemen next to me. Now speaking specifically for the Cyprus funds, just to say that Cyprus in general is at the moment trying to promote other additional services other than the traditional company products. So what we came to realize, and I'm sure that the bankers here, they know it very well, is that the old model of basically promoting the holding company is not working anymore. So the government really put an effort to promote alternative investment funds, Cypriot domiciled alternative investment funds during the last few years. And I do believe that, of course, from this effort, the shipping funds will not be absent because of obviously, the fact that Cyprus is one of the largest ship management centers in Europe. So what the government did when there was the latest amendment of the legislation, they made specific amendments to accommodate the creation of such funds. And of course, what the government is doing at the moment is putting a lot of effort to promote funds in general and specifically shipping funds. Just to say that there has been a lot of discussion lately regarding the citizenship programs, and basically one of the sectors that will be included in the sectors that they will want to basically seekers of these passports to get would definitely be the shipping sector. So I think that would be interesting because it's a clear signal from the government that they are promoting Cyprus funds.
Thank you, Marius. Let me share with the delegates the fact that Mr. Marius Demetriades, within 1 year, did the major step of leaving the front VIP line and coming on the rostrum here with the panelists. And thank you for joining us. And he left his mark, if I may be allowed to say, as Minister of Communication, Works and Transport, which was had under the umbrella, the Department of Merchant Shipping, before the Deputy Shipping Minister you met. And we thank him for all the work that all the Cyprus shipping community present today note that he has done for our shipping market in Cyprus. Thank you, Markus. Nicholas, after the local experience you have acquired working with Bank of Cyprus for more than 1 year, what opportunities do you foresee for local banks generally and Bank of Cyprus in particular in ship funding of the future?
Thank you. I feel quite enthusiastic and optimistic about the prospects. I think there is space for the local banks to develop and grow. And when we started the shipping department a year and a half ago, we very quickly realized that there was a number of shipping companies, ship owners, ship management companies that had already relationship with the bank. So we started with the farming of these existing relationships. That was a head start for what we're trying to do. At the same time, the bigger banks, like the bank I was working with back in London, were exiting shipping. Many bigger banks were shrinking their shipping portfolios. That created opportunities for the smaller banks to step in and with appropriate approach, tailor-made solution, relationship banking, earn new businesses for the bank. There's in many ways common culture, common language with the local operators in Greece and Cyprus. That creates an element of comfort. I've seen this, I've realized this over the years, and that is an advantage for local banks, I think. There's also some cross-sales which can enhance the relationships, like accounts, payrolls for the offices of the local staff. mortgages for the people's houses. This all creates a spherical approach. Of course, there's a lot of other products that are important, but this is a very good start. That creates great opportunities. I think the smaller teams are able to, as I mentioned previously, to be more flexible and at times when it's required, provide a faster solution. And I've seen this, I've evidenced this, and when it was required in the middle of the summer in August last year, we were able to deliver ahead. And I'm glad that Markus said exactly the same, ahead of the competition and win the business. I think the key thing, above all, is to focus on relationships, focus on the people. And if I'm to offer some words of hope and encouragement on how us local shipping banks should do it, is expertise, long-term views, commitment, discipline, but also integrity and passion, love for what we do. In 2 words, relationship banking, which I think we can achieve, and we can offer a lot to the local industry.
Thank you, Nicholas. The next one to you, Dinos. We live in an increasingly regulated world. Now, to what extent do you see bank regulation influencing the Cypriot financing or determining the minimum size of the portfolios of Cyprus banks?
Thank you, Adam. I want to be brief about this matter because there's been discussion and regulation in this and previous panels. Indeed, in recent years, banks have been transformed into very highly regulated organizations. This applies to banks internationally and in Cyprus. The new regulations, in conjunction with the new financial reporting standards, have imposed stricter requirements for bank capital, for the reporting of provisions, for the calculation of forward-looking probabilities of default. So indeed, yes, this is the case. We are being affected in an increasing rate by the regulations. Now, as regards the second part of your question, the size of the shipping loan portfolio of banks that applies to all of us is determined internally, first of all, by each bank's responsible bodies. And that is considering their capital base, their risk profile, liquidity, and their sector allocation appetite, of course. These decisions are closely monitored on an ongoing basis by a regulator, the Central Bank of Cyprus, which obviously wants to control a possible quick overexposure in this very new and volatile sector.
Thank you, Dinos. Markus, please. Markus, please share with us what kind of business Hellenic Bank is and will be pursuing in the future on the island, something which many potential clients of all the banks here would like you to say. And I refer to type of owner, type of vessel, and type of transaction, and anything else you want to say related to this question.
Thank you. Before I actually respond to your question, I would like to add one point to what Dinos just said on regulation, because this is in fact something where larger banks have a huge advantage over smaller banks, and this is a management time cost involving basically answering regulatory questions and entertaining regulators. And this is in fact something coming from a large international bank, at least in ship finance, that makes a huge difference, at least in my experience. To your question, I think when it comes to what to do in this island is pretty much driven by what is the potential of this island when it comes to ship finance. And we have maybe 10 to 15 ship owners here, and ship finance is an event-driven business, so we become relevant for ship owners when they buy a vessel or when they have a refinancing situation. And with 15 ship owners here on the island and taking competition into consideration, we wouldn't have done a lot if we were just focusing on Cyprus. So we also need to focus on other countries, and there we selected Greece in our neighborhood. When it comes to the type of transactions we do, it's basically any kind of transaction in dry bulk, tankers. We're also looking at containers, but we haven't done a container transaction yet. We must be, or we consider it important to be active in liquid markets, because even though we are fairly low in the cycle, there's still a lot of risks out there, and we must be able to dispose of vessels if markets go south. And at the same time, we must be able to value the vessels even if the markets are stable. And if we don't have many transactions in the market, this becomes a pretty difficult exercise. In terms of ship owner profile, we are primarily looking at family-owned businesses, but we can also do stock-listed firms or joint ventures when the family or the ship owner has a vested interest, like a majority shareholding or control over the firm in another way. So this is something very important for us, that there's alignment of interest. This aspect of alignment of interest is critical to us. Yeah.
Thank you, Markus. Marius, you have been involved in shipping from both sides of the coin, as a minister and now in the private sector. As a minister, you promoted and helped in advancing Cyprus as a major ship management center. How can you realistically see Cyprus also developing in the future into a financial services center for the ship owners of this region?
Of course, we have to be realistic in every goals we have. Just to say though that when we started this effort, there were no banks providing any ship finance in Cyprus. So we have definitely advanced towards the right direction. Now, can we become a regional financial services center? Or can we become something like London? No, I don't think we can become London anyway. But what we can do actually, we can introduce certain aspects of it. So when we did the study with EY, there were certain things that were recommended there. So I think a good start would be to target specific areas and bring the market participants and see what they would require for them to come and have a base in Cyprus. If we take examples of places like Norway, for example, they have the Oslo Stock Exchange, which of course is a listed market within Europe, which is very popular with shipping companies, bonds, and all the stuff. So, you know, if somebody could put down an idea like that, Cyprus could be a center for shipping funds. I'm just giving an example. Or a center for something else like Switzerland, which basically Switzerland is a very big player in the area of commodities and these sort of things. Why? Because they have specific incentives. So what we need to do, we need to clear in our heads what is our objective. And I'm not talking, of course, about traditional bank finance, because there are limitations with bank finance. I mean, we have the banking sector in Cyprus is improving, obviously, but you know, I mean, we don't have really big banks, and the banking, the ship finance from Cyprus will be limited. I mean, if you take it in the global financial services market. But what we can actually do, if we put our objectives, we have clear objectives, we can actually develop something that Cyprus, you know, is known for, and that could be a specific segment of the market. And I gave an example before. So I think we have to be focused, and basically we need to understand that all these things that come with effort, they come with a lot of participants taking the right steps, and of course a last thing that I would like to say, with good reputation as well. So we've been through a crisis back in 2013. I have to say that our name is not clear yet. We have to be realistic about it. When you go abroad and you promote Cyprus, I think there's a lot of people who actually go out and promote Cyprus, and I'm talking about the financial services aspect of it. The Cyprus name is still not where it should be, but I do believe that if we continue to be serious, we can get there. So yes, but I'm objective. I'm very optimistic by nature. So thanks.
There's a gentleman at the far end who was trying hopelessly to catch the attention of the previous moderator on global ship finance. I promise him I will give him the floor. He gave up and departed. Ladies and gentlemen, you have the unique opportunity to put your question without an appointment to the three panelists representing the three local banks. If somebody can tell me that the GDPR regulation allows me, I will disclose the name of the fourth bank. Any expert on GDPR? No. Okay. Please keep this as a secret. It's Astrobank. Sorry, I'm not involved financially. I'm from the market. Okay, I'm not involved professionally. It's from the market sources. So, any question, ladies and gentlemen? One of the 10 to 15 ship owners who want a loan facility from two banks? There is none, to the great satisfaction of our chairman, who will close this session 5 minutes before his time. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.